It was the standard issue infantry rifle of World War II, and it was a masterwork of genius and simplicity.
The M1 was a faithful weapon.
General Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised.
Oh yeah, that M1 is a hell of a good weapon.
Men trusted it with their lives.
I owe a lot to that M1 rifle.
It was the one buddy you could always depend on.
God, you could fight with that anywhere. Sand in it, water, it didn't matter, it kept firing.
Fighting men called this trusty rifle by its field name, the M1. And it was also known to friend and foe alike by its inventor's name, the Garand. It was one of the most widely produced rifles in American history, totaling over 5.5 million.
When we think of the American Revolution, we think of the Minuteman with his musket. And when we think of the Second World War, we think of the GI with his M1.
At 9.5 pounds of wood and steel, the M1 Garand helped turn the United States into a superpower. While the military rifles and carbines of today are lightweight automatic weapons that use detachable box magazines, before the Second World War, most soldiers carried rifles that had to be manually operated. And while those rifles produced deadly results, a self-loading rifle was a cutting-edge concept that would be challenging to turn into a reality. In the early 20th century, the United States had adopted a state-of-the-art bolt-action rifle with a 5-round internal magazine as its standard-issue service weapon. It was known as the 1903 Springfield, and it fought side by side with the rugged and dependable M1917 in World War I. While it was equal to its foreign rivals, the U.S. military was interested in modernizing its standard-issue battle rifle.
There was initial resistance to the idea of adopting the semi-auto rifle, with some arguments on the grounds that this will simply encourage troops to produce way too much fire. To fire inadvertently and promiscuously at targets without conserving ammunition. When in actuality, what it did was it gave the individual an increased volume of fire at a time when they're about to fight a conflict where they needed that more than anything.
The M1 Garand was a groundbreaking rifle, an 8-shot semi-auto that combined ingenuity, industrial mass production, and firepower into a single, solidly built infantry weapon.
The weapon's officially known as the M1 rifle caliber 30, but we all call it something. We all call it the Garand, and we call it that because of the man that designed it. John Cantius Garand, a man that was an employee and an engineer at the Springfield Armory, who designed the weapon, the true mastermind, the true genius behind this very interesting, innovative design.
More than a decade before Pearl Harbor, the M1's remarkable history began here at the National Armory in Springfield, Massachusetts, the primary manufacturing center for U.S. military firearms from 1794 to 1968. The Armory stands today as a National Historic Site and museum managed by the National Park Service.
The first question I wanted to ask you, I keep hearing some people say John Garand, but I have always said John Garand. Which is it?
People often call them Garand, but it's really Garand. French-Canadian family came down when he was 12 years old, but he'd carried that name and that pronunciation all his life. He worked here from the time he was about 30 in 1919 until 1953.
The M1 design didn't just happen overnight, did it?
Well, the Army was interested in developing a semi-automatic rifle as early as 1902.
John Garand was not alone in the design race at Springfield. Prolific arms designer and ordnance engineer John Pedersen developed his own rifle using a different cartridge, and it showed promise.
Pedersen comes up with this rifle, and the Army loves it because it works. It's the first one that works. And so
They recommend it for adoption. Garand is nowhere because his primer-activated gun has reached a dead end. And in 1926, it's abandoned. So the only guy left is Pedersen, until John Garand goes back to the drawing board, starts all over again on a totally new rifle, and he comes up with this, which is a Honey. And in 1929, they have what amounts to a shoot-off.
All right, kneel down, gentlemen, please.
And guess what? The Garand rifle wins hands down, blows the Pedersen out of the water. From then on, it's dead. Everybody knows now it's Garand's show.